Bonjour à tous. Bonjour.
Good afternoon.
Bienvenue dans cette
Welcome
séance de cinéma réalité.
to this
Alors, on va
session
voir
of
ce que ça
mixed
veut dire,
reality. We'll see what this means. Mixed reality.
Alors justement, réalité mixte, ça vous
By the
parle un
way,
petit peu ou pas?
does
Enfin,
this mean anything
vous
to
pouvez lever
you?
la main ceux qui ont déjà entendu
Could
le
you
mot
raise your
réalité.
hand if you've already heard the word mixed
Et
reality?
vous pouvez lever la main ceux qui
Could you
pourraient
raise your
expliquer
hand
ce que c'est
if you
vraiment, enfin, ce que ça
might
veut dire
be able
réalité.
to explain what it is?
Il n'y en a même pas un qui a osé lever la main.
Not
Ça, c'est
one
super.
of them could
Voilà,
do
alors
that.
l'idée, c'est
Well,
pas de faire forcément
the
une
idea
conférence
is
sur la
not
réalité mixte,
to
mais de vous
give you a
parler du
lecture
travail qu'on
on
a
mixed
fait.
reality, but I want to
On
show
a
you the
utilisé
work
le
that
mot
we did.
réalité mixte parce que
We
c'est
used the
semble
word
le
mixed
plus,
reality because we thought it
pertinent,
was the
mais,
most
voilà,
relevant
on pourra avoir des
to
grands débats
describe what
sur
we're
ce
doing.
qui est utilisé
Of course, we could have a discussion on the
par
words
les
used by
l'objet
marketing
de
and
cette conférence.
technical people, but it's not our
Alors je me présente,
purpose.
je m'appelle
I'm
David Chanel.
David Chanel.
J'ai un métier un peu particulier, je suis
I'm
artiste, ingénieur, entrepreneur.
an artist,
Donc
an
c'est-
engineer,
ça peut sembler
and
bizarre, mais c'est un
an
mélange
entrepreneur.
de ces trois choses.
I'm a slasher.
Et j'ai fondé le
And
studio Théoriz.
I founded
Théoriz, c'est un studio de création art et technologie.
Théoriz Studio,
On utilise,
which is a
nouvelles
studio
technologies
to
dans des
create
contextes
art and
artistiques
technology,
événementiels. Et on va imaginer
to
des
create
expériences, des
art
installations
and special
qui utilisent
events,
tout ça
and
pour
we
faire vivre
conceive,
des
we design
sensations, des
installations to
Je
get
vais,
the people to
je vais vous montrer
experience
rapidement
some
une vidéo de
sensations.
plusieurs projets qu'on a fait
I'll
pour
show you a
parcourir un
video
petit
of
peu,
several projects that
notre
we did
univers.
to show you what our universe is like.
Alors voilà, au
Right.
studio, en fait, on fait trois choses.
In our studio, we do
On
three
va,
things.
faire la diffusion
As
de production
artists,
artistique.
we
On va exposer
produce
sur des
art
musées, des festivals,
that we exhibit in
partout dans le
museums
monde.
and
Et
festivals
puis après,
throughout the
on va
world,
proposer nos
and
services, nos services de
then we
création, art,
also
technologie.
offer
C'est
our
à la
services
fois,
of
beaucoup de
art and
technique, développement
technology
informatique,
creation
et d'ingénierie,
that includes
pour
engineering and
organiser
IT
des
development
lancements
for
de
special
produits,
events,
des
product
arts,
launches,
des
brands, events,
Voilà,
luxury
donc,
brands everywhere in the
les
world.
qu'on a fait,
The
c'est
last
notamment le Super
ones we
Bowl,
did was the
les
Super
événements,
Bowl
etc.
or
Donc,
things
c'est
in
notamment l'Europe,
Dubai.
notamment,
It's
l'US.
mostly Europe and the Middle East and
Et,
the
et
US.
on a créé, du coup, dans le studio,
And
un
we
laboratoire de
also
recherche
created
scientifique.
a scientific
Donc,
research
c'est un
lab,
laboratoire où on va rechercher, on a différents
which is a
types de
lab
projets.
where we research on
On a
several
pas mal
types
de
of
recherches sur le
projects.
système de tracking,
We researched on tracking, distributed cameras, pipeline for real-time image creation in real-time images, engines, and we also spent a lot of time on a mixed reality project. We spent about 10 months on it, and we asked ourselves how we could disrupt the audiovisual world today and the way to produce images. As you've seen, what we do today is shows, installations. We weren't really involved in shooting or audiovisual productions, and so we thought, how can we use those techniques, interactivity, broadcasting, projection, in the audiovisual world? After 10 months, we did not disrupt much, but we found quite interesting techniques, and so we've tried a lot of things, but there was one technique which was quite interesting, which we used to produce a prototype for mixed reality production, whereby we filmed actors and dancers in video immersion with a tracking system, which I will tell you about later. And at the end of the research, we wanted to put this concept to trial, and we created a short film. I'll tell you the story of this short film and how we got there, but I'll show it to you first without explaining anything, so you can have your own opinion about it, and then I will tell you about what happened behind the scenes. I have to give you one clue, however, before we watch the movie. In this movie, which is a short film, there was no post-production effect. We did not add anything to the video. Everything that you'll see is what actually came out of the camera. We did a little bit of color setting, but not much more. Thank you, thanks. So let's try to decipher everything that's happening here. One of the main effects that we use is anamorphosis. It's something that we know since the 16th century, so that's what it is. What you see here, it's a point of view. From this point of view, you can see the writing correctly, but if you place yourself somewhere else, you'll realize that actually it's been written on the ceiling and on the walls. And that's what anamorphosis is. If you change the point of view, it doesn't work. You must have seen people doing this on the street. They're using exactly this principle. The image works from one point of view, but not from all the others. So how do we go beyond anamorphosis? What happens if you calculate anamorphosis in real time? If you use all the points of view of space by tracking the point of view, the person, the camera, and by calculating every time the perfect anamorphosis, the perfect illusion to create this effect. We studied this in a first artistic installation. There. So that's the first test. It's an installation on which we use the symbol of the door and we try to explore the virtual world that's behind the door. And during our research in mixed reality, we came up with this system, which is the one that we use to shoot the movie. As you can see, we display the video on the floor and walls, and there are several tracking systems. One that tracks the dancers. It's a technology that we developed, which is called Augmenta. It's a network of 3D cameras on the ceiling. So it means that the dancers don't have to wear sensors on themselves. They're totally free. They are tracked as soon as they enter the room. And then we have sensors from virtual reality, which are used in mixed reality usually, and we track the camera with a tracker and laser scanning, which is much more precise, much more accurate, based on which you have the position of the camera in space and you can calculate all the images and have this illusion. And then, of course, we have a technical setup which is quite standard, and then the dancers could have this feedback and could be totally immersed, and I will show you the first technical shots. So you kind of saw how it works. And now I'm going to show you the making of. You will see the studio, how we shot the movie and the atmosphere of the shooting. That's the first mixed reality film that required no special effect, no post-production. Mixed reality first is the opposite of augmented reality. Augmented reality is a little bit of virtual in the real world, and here it's a little bit of real in the virtual world. In this short film, we developed a technology which is called mixed reality, in which we wanted to have the people in immersion. We added 2 tracking systems, one to follow the actors in space, and the other technology tracks the camera and allowed us to calculate the perspectives for each position of the camera in space, so that you had this very impressive effect. It's interesting because we can mix the real and the virtual in one same place without needing to work too much in post-production. In this project, we wanted to disrupt the current way we produce visual arts. Today you've got a lot of green walls, and it's difficult to have a close interaction with green wall environment because there's no feedback. When we work on this, the actors can actually see the environment, and shooting everything in one studio, we're changing the creation method, and so we managed to obtain different results. Compared to a green background, here you really have to use your imagination. You've got no idea of what it's going to give before post-production with a green wall, while here it's live. You can see everything, you can see different points of view, different perspectives, and you really feel that you're in space, really. What interests me the most is to create movements and shapes and move them around, to enter new worlds. And in my dancing, you've got this. I create shapes, I take them, I give them life. This is meaningful to me. It's as if I really materialized what I'm creating with my dancing. I think it's really great. We are here to support the performers in a new way of making clips or videos or performance in general. The first part of writing the story, and then my work is to work on the style of the dancers, to create a universe that is consistent. I was more involved in the 3D creation, colors, universes that we're working on. For us, on this project, it was interesting to work with new technologies, and it was a very ambitious project to get this in a minimum time. We had a day of preparation and 2 days of shooting, and it was a small time to put a lot of things in it. So when we work on a project like this, of course we have to think in terms of pixel density. The camera is quite close to the surfaces which are filmed, so you can see any little defect in the resolution. And then it's the shadows of the performance. You don't want to have shadows on the walls and somebody who will actually walk in the shadow on the floor. So this is really something that we need to work on. we had a software to simulate those things. We can simulate the projection cones, and I think we managed to generate all the content in real time from one single computer. We had the 6 projectors plus the monitoring screen. It required a very high level of optimization in terms of the 3D environment. We have a tool that we developed internally with Mr. Tracker. It's a tool that is a middleware to actually retrieve the data from the Vibe trackers, transfer them into a computer without having to use the headset, and then we have a software which is called Shatter. It's Augmented Fusion also, which is an off-the-shelf software that we used to track the people in the system, to find out who is where, and all this gets into the computer, and then we can work on mixed reality inside of it. So the directing work is very different because everybody has their part, so everybody can have an influence on the result. You know, the person who's filming, the dancers also will have an impact on the visual, the digital technicians. We have maximum flexibility. At any moment we can decide to have this thing bigger, to change the frame, because with this flexibility we can be very creative and find ideas directly on the set, talking to one another. There are things we can only see on the monitor, so it's difficult for the choreography. I remember there was a movement that we had in the column scene. You have to avoid the objects. It means that you have to find your bearings in a space which is not physical. I remember in preparation, I was so much into it that I actually hit the wall, the actual wall. And I realized that when you are watching things through a monitor, you are so immersed in space that you have no concept of the actual physical space. We soon came to realize that light was very interesting, very important, because it's the only thing that will enable us to make sure that the dancers will look nice, will look great, and that there will be a great balance between light and the video. We would like to work on projects with great artists for music clips, for example. We think it would also make sense for advertising. The idea is to keep on growing and evolving in the technology to become more and more creative.
Passe les derrière du making of.
Right.
Alors, on est un peu... Non, ça va. Donc voilà, au niveau du film, peut-être quelques mots sur l'histoire.
A few words about the story, what we try to
voilà, on se place dans un futur proche.
explain here. Of course, it's in the near future, those 2 young people who teleport themselves into a virtual world. The idea is to challenge our relationship with the virtual world that's around us. We're not answering the question, but we are merely trying to ask the question, because we see that it hurts when they get into this virtual world and then they try to get back to each other. So there's this idea of wondering whether it's good or not, whether it's addictive or not. Then you also have a lot of hidden messages in there if you pay attention. Sometimes you can hear the breathing, which is actually reversed between the real and the virtual worlds. Also, an anecdote, well, nothing was done in post-production. Even the blank eyes of the dancer that you see at the beginning, it's his actual eyes. It's not a visual effect. And then we have a little surprise for you, and let's watch it now.
chance d'avoir les danseurs avec nous.
Thank you. We're very lucky because we have the dancers with us. I'm sure you recognize them. Exoce Kasungo and Biotsa Donse.
Peut-être rapidement, est-ce que vous avez un petit feedback ou un...
Can you tell us
ou un mot, t'as pas de son là-dessus.
a few words
sur votre expérience pour le
about
tournage,
your experience
pour le public.
during the shooting?
Pas trop essoufflé,
If you still have breath.
Alors, pour moi, ça a été une bonne expérience.
Well, for me, it was a good experience because, as I said in the video, what I do in my dancing is that I try to give life to everything I create. I try to materialize what I'm doing with the dancing. So, that was really a good experience. That's what I liked about it. Well, it was great, very, very rich experience because it's very different from what you do conventionally, and we were able to project ourselves in the real/virtual world, and we also crashed in the walls sometimes. So yes, it was very, very sharp. We had to be very accurate in terms of time, in terms of space, in terms of the dancing, choreography, but it was cool, really.
Merci, je pense qu'on peut les applaudir un petit peu.
Well, I think they deserve a big clap.
Voilà, peut-être un dernier mot du coup avant de passer à un moment de questions-réponses avec vous. La conclusion de tout ce travail, donc, parce que c'était surtout un travail de recherche au début qui a abouti sur ce film. Le film sera bientôt disponible en ligne.
The movie will soon be available online, so you're really the first to have seen it.
Alors nous, ce qu'on a appris, c'est que voilà, c'est pas ça ne révolutionne pas le cinéma, ça ne remplace pas les fonds verts, tout ça.
Be a revolution in the movie industry. It's not going to replace the green backgrounds or anything, but it's a different way of creating the work, and really it enabled us to express very sensitive and very poetic things between the virtual and the real. Things that we do during a dance show or on stage. You can have video, you can have dancers interacting with the digital world, and you can really have a close link. Well, it's more difficult to do this with a green wall because it's difficult to have intensity in your eyes with a dragon when the dragon is actually not there.
Et sur des choses comme la danse
and for things like dancing,
même voilà, des danses super sensuelles,
or
comme
even
tango par exemple,
sensuous dance like tango, for example. It would be interesting to see somebody dancing tango in that context, because it's difficult to dance tango with a completely virtual being. So we've only started to begin to work on this, but sometimes you had a direct interaction with a dancer. Sometimes you had this feedback from space, actually. It's very, very flexible and very precious in everything that we explored. And then, of course, the result is very different. The outcome is different. This is really the thing that disrupted me the most. You know, I was thinking that you really have to make the decision between showing the actual place. You see in the making of, you see the studio, but you also see what is displayed, and in the film it's the opposite. You don't see the walls, you only see the 3D content. And then it's a little bit more difficult also, because if you only show the 3D content, then it might become a little bit basic and not so interesting. So you really have to find the middle of the road solution between the two, showing production and showing the outcome. And this was very difficult to actually fine-tune for us. We still have to explore that. And then there was a lot of flexibility and creativity involved. You know, in a standard workflow of the movie, you know, it's very linear. You film on a green background, and then you edit, and then you film every step after the first. While here we do everything at the same time. Everybody's there at the same time, so we can talk, we can change things. It's much more like a performance, really, like music or like a stage performance. You know, the cameraman is moving, things are changing, the dancers are moving. things are changing. And in terms of directing, you have the possibility to change a frame or to try to go into very creative things. You can change scales, you can change the details, and when you're in a very creative content, when you want to innovate, it's, I think, a tool that is very interesting and very appreciated. And also, it was a new workflow. We had to adapt to this new way of working, this new type of working in team, and it was a great time that we had together. Okay, let's watch the movie one last time, and then we'll still have a little bit of time for questions, if you have questions, of course.
Benoît Arbelot to come up with us here, who does the R&D at Théoriz. So do you have any questions? We have about 10 minutes.
Bonjour. Et beau travail d'ailleurs.
Some very nice work. One question which may seem basic, but did you do tests outdoors? I may imagine you can do that on screens, say outside, not just on a wall, indoors. Did you do outdoor tests to see whether the ambient light could be a problem? Is it something you imagine doing for events, for example? How can you deal with the ambient light? In this project, we did no outside tests, but we often project outdoors. So what we call light pollution, we know, we do mapping things, we sometimes screen on big buildings of 200 to 4,000 square meters, so we calculate the equipment that's needed, we can project outdoors. Any other questions? It was very good. Thank you very much. Bravo. Just a question. When there's the spiral and you throw things through the spirals, or were there sensors, or was it a choreography? What was the interactive nature? Good question. It was the choreography. It was the choreography. It was worked in choreography. So you had to adapt and rehearse over and over. Yeah, several hours, no, I wouldn't say several hours, but we had to adapt on the set. The visual aspect had a certain timing and we had to adapt to that timing. And in space, that's why I was saying. It was very precise, and in particular, in terms of the choreography in space and time, because there were visuals that were impacting at very precise moments.
C'est une problématique qu'on a régulièrement fait sur tous les spectacles de danse.
What we did regularly, we always do is, should we fix the visuals or allow for some interactivity? We try a bit of both, and everything that isn't a plus remains interactive. Everything, for example, the positions of the dancers, then in that case, we often have this, especially in live shows.
Bravo.
Hello, bravo.
Très beau projet.
Nice project.
Je suis très heureux de voir
I'm
que
very
ça s'est
happy
bien. Je pense que c'était
that
de être très heureux, je pense, du résultat aussi.
I think
Par
you're
rapport
happy with the
au,
result. In terms of
cette question d'interactivité,
the question of interactivity, to see the result, what was for you the next stage technologically? To go one step further, there are a lot of things. Basically, what we have is a prototype that allowed us to shoot the film with the various constraints of a prototype, and there are a lot of things that we need to adjust to really be able to offer that as a production tool and to really set things technologically. We imagine the system saying we want to have a certain degree of quality for webcasts, for example. We made this film to we move up the quality to what we want to propose. There are a lot of things. I won't go into detail, but for example, here we had 6 minutes, so 6K video in real time. If we want to go beyond, we have to do some cluster rendering, which we're beginning to explore. And there are many small things, tools. All the software were rewritten to heighten performance, and all of the image deformation, all that was recoded to adapt it to our system. And then that's on the technological part and on the creative side. And there's a lot of things we want to explore already in the film. We've explored some things, but there's a lot of real and virtual interactions we want to look at. There's other ways of doing it. Here we were using projection. We could use LED panels. There's advantages and disadvantages. We could use holographic films. There are many things that we need to look at. And then there's the format here we had. This was a short format, a bit experimental or artistic. Then maybe we might look at what we do in other genres. It could be quite relevant for TV sets. We could play out do this on a TV set. Would see the real dancers on set, but then there would be most people would see it on TV, would get the real result. What we did here, the medium to be adapted to that, many things. And what about 3D stereoscopic filming? We could look at that. We wanted more to create depth using the brain. To look at a parallax, infinite parallax on a flat wall, and to get a 3D stereoscopic effect. We get into some technical discussions. We can talk about that afterwards. Are there any other questions? Bravo, congratulations. As a dancer, how would you define your dance? And in terms of how you place yourself, since the dance and the projection reflect each other, how did you work? And did you elaborate both at the same time? Did you look at the sets first and then you did the choreography that corresponded to that? Did you do the opposite? I'll do the beginning. There was, at the end, more a question for me. In fact, this film was done with the resources we have. We didn't really have a budget. So when you don't have a budget, you concentrate on the essentials. So typically the dance was added at the end. We couldn't do rehearsals with the system because the rehearsals we had in the studio with all of the equipment were done to make material tests, equipment tests. So the dance came in at the end, but it wasn't obvious. There's some parts of the choreography where we asked them to write certain things more. And there was quite a lot of improvisation. I'm not a choreographer, but when I directed the dance, or with the adjectives, state of mind, feelings, and then the dancers did the work. There's only one scene, the column scene, where we had to choreograph everything because they had to go between the columns. It was quite a funny moment because the cameraman wasn't the dancer, so participating in the choreography was difficult. You had to be at the right spot. We had to repeat in terms of timing. We spent a lot of time on that scene. The other scenes we didn't have to choreograph. The cage, for example, where you were dancing together, and the problem there was I gave them what I could to imagine. So you're going to dance, and then you're going to the ceiling and on the wall. So it was easy. So I was the only one, given that we added everything. I only had the entire sort of final rendering in mind. And we rehearsed. We did 3 days of shooting. And the first day was only rehearsing, and then we shot in 2 days, in 8 in the morning to midnight. So quite a lot of time. Would have been nice to have more, but when you do it with the independent budget.
C'était en gros, parce que je m'y connais pas, mais
I don't know very much, but how you define how this affects your doubts.
Ah d'accord, tu veux dire en dehors de
well, what you do as dancers in general. It's hybrid. We come from different, we have different backgrounds, quite complementary. Urban dance, contemporary dance, bit of hip hop, voguing for me, crump, a lot of crump. A bit of electro. It's quite hybrid.
Merci.
That was answer your question. What I wanted to do in terms of dancing was to mix a staged contemporary type dancing with all of this influences of all the urban dancing styles, but put all of the hip-hop crump, which you don't usually do on screen. I wanted this influence on scene, on stage, so I took a lot of time to find the right dancers. I wanted people who are in the right state of mind and work, and we did that together. Which we're saying brings me to another question. When you created the illusion separately from the dance, were there things that didn't work and yet you had to correct in real time, or everything went well? Or did you have to redo some images? It never works, in fact, to begin with, especially since you're working with completely new technology. So we were really innovating, researching in terms of creativity. We stuck to the storyboard, the scenes,
il y a plein de choses qui n'ont pas marché, mais par
But
contre,
there are a lot of things that
c'était
didn't work, but it didn't matter because
tout le système est hyper flexible. C'est-à-dire
the
que
system is
création,
very
ils tournent vraiment
flexible.
live. Donc, par
The
exemple, on
creative
se rend compte
tool
qu'il fallait
is
tourner tous les
a
plans
live
pour
shoot,
les lumières, etc. à un moment donné.
and
On a tourné
we had
tous
to
les
do
plans,
all the
etc. On a
shots,
fait sur set sans problème.
and then we did
en live.
things on stage
J'ai vraiment
live.
prévu tous les outils qui nous permettent d'être
So we had
super
all the
flexible,
tools
pendant
to
le set,
allow,
enfin,
to enable
pendant
us to
le
be
moment.
very
Mais le
flexible
fait
at all
d'utiliser
times,
une
but the
image
fact that
comme ça,
you're
nous permettait vraiment de...
using
Il y avait
real-time
deux
images,
rapports,
there
on avait absolument pas prévu, on les a
two
testés sur place, parce que
shots
c'était
we didn't think we would do.
on testait des choses nouvelles,
We tested new things,
qu'on a rajoutées.
and which we
Mais,
added.
voilà. Donc ouais, beaucoup quand même de
A lot
changements,
of
de choses,
changes,
mais après la direction, la
but
lignée,
then
sur les différents mondes,
the
c'est
direction,
bien,
the
c'est
different
concentré.
worlds, we managed to keep the
Mais
essentials.
ça n'a pas été un problème du coup de
But
changer
it
les
wasn't a
choses.
problem to change things as we went along.
Ça nous permet d'arriver à
That's what did us. That's what allowed us to finish the film.
Eh bien, merci beaucoup. Voilà, si vous avez d'autres questions, on sera pas loin.